I think there's a fun piece in here, not understanding that asking them to come back or asking them to do some level of business with you again doesn't always have to be, hey, come buy from me again. It could be, come experience something that we're doing. Come check this out.
Hey Tanner, super excited for today's chat. We're going to be diving into another fun topic, one that I particularly am excited about. So let's give a quick brief on what to expect today.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about the what we call the five ways, or really the profit growth system that we install within businesses. And I'll give a quick little rundown of that here in a second. But I'm excited to dig into the one that we're going to be getting into today and kind of some different things with it. But for those of you that are on camera watching this, the video version of this, here's just a quick. There you go. Get it all on the screen there. Quick overview of it, but essentially the profit growth system, or the five ways, is essentially leads multiplied by conversion rate gets you the number of customers or the number of clients within your business. So when we talk about this problem or this process, it's hard to say just go get more customers, but we can look at what can we do to generate leads and what can we do to improve our conversion rate. So that's kind of the component here. How do we break this down into things that we can actually do? Once you have customers, then it's how often do they buy from you, the number of transactions, how much they spend on average, their average dollar sale, and customers times those two numbers can get you your total sales or revenue. Once you have revenue, then you can multiply it by the margins, which is essentially what you keep after all the expenses are paid, and that's going to get you to profitability. So when we break these things down, we can get into what specifically can we do within a business to start increasing each one of these little areas. So go back, watch the last couple episodes. We've talked about margins. We've talked about average dollar sale. We've talked about conversion rate. Came away with some really good ideas and things in those conversations. So today we're going to get into number of transactions. How do we get people to buy from us more frequently?
Ooh, well, I'm excited to dive in. I know the last few have been amazing, so this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, so Kate, you've got your business, and we've been talking about a bunch of different things like to help increase some of these areas. And we were talking a little bit before we jumped on here today. What do you think about when I say average number of transactions, having people buy from you more frequently? What comes to mind, or what are some things that you've experienced or seen within your own business?
Ooh, this is a good one because it's something I wasn't active with even 6 months ago in my business. I was passively getting clients and getting those numbers up. And now, when I'm taking more of an active approach, it's getting more of those people to buy and maybe buy again. And that value I feel like is increasing just with focusing on that. So it's going to be fun to talk about how we can build that momentum and help, again, help with our profit.
Mm-hmm. There's we won't be able to get into all of them today, but there's over 68 different ways that we can actually move the needle when it comes to increasing our number of transactions per customer. But I think if we break it down and understand why is this important. Yeah, some of us may know the term client acquisition cost or customer acquisition cost. Like, how much does it cost to actually get a new buyer within your business? And we'll talk lead generation next week. But there's a cost to that. So when we can actually take somebody who's already bought from us in the past, they liked our experience, things like that, how do we get them to buy again? It is so much easier and more cost effective to be able to get people to buy again than it is to go and get a new customer. So this is a really big piece for us to get into. When we're going through this, we're having conversations on how do we improve the number of transactions. I've got one that just stands out above all the rest that I absolutely love. It's one of the simplest things that I think is often overlooked. Ask your customers to come back. That's it. Very, very simply, right? Just actually, send them a note, whether it's once a month or once a quarter, something like that, and just say, hey, it's been a while. Haven't seen you. Have you been? Would love for you to stop in and say hi. Like that, just doing that little thing makes a world of difference. Now, yes, you take that back and say, well, how do I do that, right? Ideally, you have a CRM or some system, even if it's an Excel document that has everybody's names and phone numbers and things like that in it. But once you get that database, once you have that database, then it's just a matter of sending the note and saying, I genuinely care. Haven't seen you in a while. How have you been? Why don't you come back and see us? Ask them to come
Yeah.
back.
It kind of goes back to the keep it simple model. It's those are the things that I think as I in business, I'm always like going go 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 next next next, and I forget about like, hey, what's actually a value that's already been created, whether that be good rapport, a good relationship, a good customer experience. And those are things we can like tap into. That's stuff we've already built, and that takes a lot of effort off of like again finding new customers.
Mm-hmm. Like, and this asking them to come back. I think there's a couple of different ways that kind of segue into how we do that. Outside of just like we'll send them a note, right? But there's a couple things from actual email campaigns to personalized messages to even just like a weekly or a monthly newsletter. Is that something that you do in your business? Do you have a newsletter of some format that you do?
I do. Yes, we do a weekly newsletter.
So what does that look like? What's kind of the intention behind the weekly newsletter?
The weekly newsletter right now is driving our current fans to our events. And that can be the artists as well as music lovers, anybody who's really interested. And so that's what we're doing. And we're also driving, connecting our artists with fans. And so we're trying to build their platforms. So that shows the value add to the artists as well, because they're seeing this experience happening. And I always send them a copy of the newsletter and say, hey, we shared this with our audience. Feel free to share it with yours. And that's how we're kind of building our.
I love that. I think there's a fun piece in here, not understanding that asking them to come back or asking them to do some level of business with you again doesn't always have to be, hey, come buy from me again. It could be, come experience something that we're doing. Come check this out. Depending on the business that you are that's listening to this right now, some of you may just need to go straight to buy this next thing because it's a low ticket, very easy, lots of volume type of a business. But if you're in kind of that mid-ticket type thing or even high-ticket type sale, having something that allows them to come back and just be a part of your world again. So ask them to sign up for additional email newsletters. To maybe for someone listening to this, it'll be download this ebook. It might be come to an event, right? There's different ways to be able to re-engage them or keep them engaged, and an email newsletter is a great way to do that. So you can ask them to come back, but you can ask them to continue to be a part of your world. And I think both of those are really important when it comes to getting them to continue to buy from you again and again as time continues to go on.
100%. I found so much value in just like focusing on the community that we're building and inclusivity that we're building, and like saying, hey, if you had a good time, we'd love to see you again. And there's, a lot of times we're not asking for much or any like big sign on or anything, but it's more of a give. But it builds that rapport and it keeps them feeling like they're part of that, like you said, part of your world.
Absolutely. So let's transition this from email newsletters to email campaigns, kind of slightly different. So what's your take on that? How do you think about, or what comes to mind that's differently from doing a newsletter versus kind of some different email campaigns? What do you think about?
I think about like a newsletter can be part of that. It's an aspect of that. But I think of a campaign being multiple touch points and like a calculated plan of when this is going to go out and moving them through a journey or an experience.
It's a really good way to put it, right? The kind of the three levels that I think about is, you've got the newsletter format. That's really like broadcast to everybody. You're on the list. We're going to send you this. This is kind of applicable to everybody that's in the database, generally speaking. Now you can split it up more, sure, but generally speaking, it's a big broadcast type thing. When I think of email campaigns, then it is a little bit more structured. It's what's the trigger that got them interested in a specific thing. So in our business, it might be a business that's interested in marketing specifically, or one that's specific in sales specifically, or another one might be having interest around hiring and retaining team members, right? All are slightly different areas within a business. So how do you structure an email campaign that's going to be valuable to them, that gives them the opportunity to take the next step with you, but it's specific to what they're interested in, right? So now instead of having, here's my broadcast email, now I've got you said you're interested in hiring and recruiting. So here's, for the next 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, here's 7 different emails that you're going to get that's going to give you a hot tip on how to recruit and hire. And by the way, when you're ready, here's a book a call, or here's buy the next workshop, or whatever the next thing is that they're going to need as you take them through that journey. So a little bit different way to continue to nurture them, but now being very specific to the things that they've articulated that they needed. And you can adapt this for each business, things like that, but just gives you a little bit of a context between kind of the broadcast email newsletter type stuff versus specific campaigns. And then kind of the next layer down from that is just personalized emails or text messages saying, hey, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you in a bit. A little bit more one-to-one versus one-to-many.
Definitely. And I really like that customizable approach too, because then they're going to feel extra special. They're going to feel like the content speaks to them and they're going to more likely be engaged.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm going to give you an example. I heard this, the last week or so. I thought it was fantastic. When it comes to nurture campaigns or nurture emails, getting people just interested, seeing how they're doing, keeping you top of mind, inviting them to take the next step, that sort of thing. They don't have to be complex. So I had another mentor of mine kind of share this in the last week, and they send an email once a month to primarily everyone in their database. And the email's very short. The first line of it is essentially, hey, we're hosting this next event or workshop or community group or something like that. If you're available, would love to have you join. That's like line number one. Line number two then is, what's a value thing that I can give them? Hey, we just wrote this blog article on XYZ topic, or we just put together this ebook on XYZ topic, or this resource, or whatever it is, right? And each of you will have your own like lead magnets that have value, that sort of thing. And they'll put that in there. And then the third one is a PS, thought you might be interested in this individual story, and they send a testimonial. So now, and that's it. And they just send that once a month to their entire database. Now, where this gets fun is once a quarter, someone on their team picks up the phone and calls every single person on the database. And that call, there's no sale, there's no invites, there's nothing that gets them to take another step other than, how are things? And in our case, how's business? Now, it could be, how are things? How's the family? How are things? How are your kids? How are things? How's school? Like whatever, works for your particular industry, but very focused on them and showing that you actually care. Now, you pair that with these emails that are going out, and it's much easier for them to say, oh, yeah, I should go do something else with this business again. Very simple way to think about the nurture sequence, and just reminding people that there's a next step that's available to them when they're ready for it.
Well, I love this. I could see implementing this into touch points with the artists that I work with, or that, maybe they played a gig for me, but they aren't in my coaching program, or, I think that's such a great value add. And again, it does create that relationship and it keeps you top of mind. They'll be like, oh, I saw an email come through from Tanner. I'm going to go check that out. He was really great on the phone. And then there might be an opportunity for a sale or a connection point, or even maybe they refer you to a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point, especially the referral piece, because sometimes maybe they're not ready for the next buy. Maybe they're not ready to do business again, but they did actually enjoy the thing that they got. They got value from the service or the product that you provided. They might know somebody else that's in their network that could use it, but they're busy. So unless we remind them consistently that we still exist, it's going to be hard for them to remember to refer us and things like that. So I think that's a phenomenal point. So we've talked about kind of keeping in regular contact. We've talked about asking them to come back. We talked a little bit about reminding them about the things that we do. Newsletters, email campaigns, follow up again and again and again and again. But there's another one that just stands out to me that I think is underutilized in a lot of different industries. And that is simply rebook your next visit while they're there for their current visit.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's dive into this one.
So there's a lot of different ways to do it. So the one that comes to mind for me that I've seen both ends of the spectrum, which is why this one comes to mind. Let's say I go to the dentist or something like that. Almost always they're booking the next appointment. I go and get a haircut. If I go to a really good place, they're working on booking the next appointment, or at least offering to book the next appointment. I go to another place that maybe is a large chain or something like that, and the team's not trained on it. Almost never do they ask for setting the next appointment. And it's crazy because the place that I go to pretty consistently for my haircut, usually about once a month or every 4 weeks or so. And I got into this rhythm where, because of location changes, things like that, I wasn't sure what my schedule was going to be, and I didn't book my next appointment. And then I completely forget, and 5-6 weeks go by. I'm like, oh man, I need to get back on the calendar. And if you think of like number of times that someone can buy within a time period, like within a year, if all of a sudden you go from 4 weeks to 6 weeks, I'm going to be spending less money with them just because there's not enough time, right? But if they're consistently saying, we're booking your next appointment while I'm there, now we can get into that regular rhythm, and we can go from a 6-week cycle to a 4-week cycle, or a 5-week cycle to a 3-week cycle, or something else like that. And you can get a few more transactions in the year simply by taking that extra step and booking that next appointment while you're there.
Wow. And you think about how that can compound. Like, say you even take 3 clients and get them on a kind of almost like a subscription in a way, like at least on the calendar, that could increase so much, percentage wise. So you're compounding that too.
It's you can do this in a whole bunch of different ways. So, I've seen some really good examples of it. I've seen some good examples where it's in place, but maybe isn't as enforced as it could be, and then some cases where it's just not even thought about. But take a community event as an example. So I'll share. I'm the MC for the 1 Million Cups program here in Round Rock. And one of the things that is at the end of every single one of those presentations is, hey, by the way, our next meeting is next, Wednesday the 1st or whatever day it is. Here's the QR code. As you can tell, this room fills up very quickly. So make sure you grab your phones, pull them out right now, scan in, get that on your calendar now so that you've got a spot, right? We're booking it in that moment. And that's a free event for the community, things like that, but it's rebooking that next thing. So people are always thinking about coming back. So just another kind of example of how to implement that for a different type of strategy.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind there because that's creating habit for one for them, and it's making it really easy for them to have that QR code because all of us are so busy. It's like, I'm just going to put this in my calendar now, scan and plug it in, and then it's there, and then they'll have the reminder and they'll be like, oh yeah, I got 1 million cups. I do similar things for my monthly event sessions to help artists stay engaged with the community, and it does work. I just started implementing the QR code technique and say, hey, come on out, we've got blah blah blah, and next month is going to be a panel, guys are going to love it. And so just stating that a few times through after our live podcast or after our DJ set really helps them create that habit around it too.
Yeah. So I give one more example on this one, and then we'll kind of wrap this one up for the day. It can be pre-planning their next purchase. So we've kind of been talking about in the more of a event or certain point in time type of a thing. That's really the examples we've given so far. But let's say you sell high ticket items, or in your case you sell kind of some DJ coaching type stuff. Planning or pre-planning their next purchase. What are they going to need once they get through that program? What's that next thing that they're going to need, and how can we start pre-planning that halfway through the program, and then touch again at 3/4 of the way through the program? And then by the time you get to the end of it, it's a natural, well, we're setting you up for this next thing because we've been talking about and pre-planning kind of your next purchase, your next thing that you're going to need, because it's a natural progression. So a similar strategy, just a little bit different take on less time-based and more what's the journey that they're going through in terms of the product or service that you're taking them, having them buy the first time, and pre-planning their next purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big one too. I think about that with, if one of my artists graduates my coaching program, they can join our monthly or our weekly to keep them going. So it's like I can kind of pre-plan that into, hey, you're not done forever. Why don't you hop into this next opportunity to keep sharp with the skills that you learned and stay in a community? So I think that's a really great way to implement that.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll end this one with I think we've talked about some really simple things that the listeners can go and take and start to implement within their business. Kay, for you, what's been your favorite one that we talked about here today?
I think my favorite one is really that one, like if you're having something that's on the schedule regularly, like an event, just to have that QR code screen or print out or something, just prompting them. I mean, that's such an easy thing to implement in, or even if, say, you're recording a podcast, at the end, say, like and subscribe for more content like this. Check out our episodes a few back or something like that. So I think that one for me is something I can have it stacked with my programming already in just a very simple, like a thing that would take a couple, under 60 seconds to say.
I love that. That's fantastic. And I think it's very actionable and gives some relatability for those that might be thinking about the same things that you just mentioned. So that's a number of transactions. Like I said, there's 68 plus different ways that we can improve number of transactions or how often somebody buys from you within your specific business. If you're ever interested in learning a little bit more about how we plug this into kind of your business specifically, if you're listening to it, as a listener of this podcast, we're going to give you the opportunity to take advantage of 2 weeks of free coaching. If that's something that you're interested in, we will put the information in the description below. But it's a 4-session process where we actually go into some of these things and figure out which of these 68 for average transactions actually fit for your business, right? Because everyone's gonna be slightly different. So that's kind of our gift back to you. It'll be in the description. If it's something you're interested in, share it with folks that you think could get some value from that. But other than that, go back, listen to the previous episodes that we've talked about. We talked about conversion rate. We've talked about average dollar sale, or how much people spend with you, and then profit margins. Kind of some really good lessons in those. We'll be back again next week, and we're getting into the final topic, which is on everybody's mind. How do I get more leads? What does the marketing side of this thing look like? And I will give you a little sneak preview that there's over 87 different things that we can do for lead generation. So we'll pick out some of the easiest, fastest, quickest ones that you can implement in your business, and that'll be the big thing that we talk about in our episode next week.
Wonderful. It's going to be great.